So yes, for those who haven't attended before, this is the AI in Action webinar series. So we're on number 10 now. And what we try to do is like a practical approach to how local businesses here in Jersey are either using AI or should be using AI to talk about different areas. And today we're particularly talking about one that we haven't talked about so far is around marketing. So how can AI assist with content creation? So the title is AI Without the Slop, Building AI Content Systems That Sound Like You. So poor, lazy, mass-produced AI content is something that we need to avoid and use AI effectively to generate consistent quality on-brand marketing collateral to help grow your business. So that's the gist we're talking about. A little bit of housekeeping before we kick off into things. Today's presentation is going to be recorded and it will be published on our website, so please be aware of that if you ask questions. Keep your audio off to begin with. We'll have questions at the end and you can turn your audio on. But if you do have questions at any time during the presentation, then just add them to the comments. The little icon on the bottom right there. Hi, Jerry. So, yes, first of all, 10th anniversary of our webinars. So really excited by that. And yeah, can you just turn your sound there, Jerry? So yeah, like I was just saying to Nathan before that the first webinar we did, I was really nervous, and the more you do, the better you get at them and the more sort of content you get with it. So yeah, thank you for everyone that's been along on the journey with us. We do have we'll talk about our next webinar towards the end of this one, but we also have some guests line up to talk about AI governance and also Copilot Cowork. So those are coming in the next few months. And a little bit about Blue Llama. So we're Jersey's AI-powered productivity partner, helping you sort of scale your business using AI so you don't have to employ new people. And we do that by removing the repetitive, often low-value work that your team does, that admin type stuff, so that they can focus on the more human, higher value work. And we do this in 3 different sort of product services. We've got Discover, Deliver, and Delegate. If you don't know where to start, then Discover is like an opportunity assessment where we go into your business and we work with your leaders and your team to identify the real opportunities and rank those opportunities so that you have a roadmap in where AI is going to deliver the most value. Deliver is if you've already got ideas, you've already identified a process or something that you feel AI would help streamline, then we can absolutely do that work. And then Delegate is like a new offering that we're doing, whereby if you don't feel you've got someone internally that is willing to take on your responsibility for AI, we can do that. And so we'll look at the roadmap, we'll look at strategy, educating your team, the governance side around it, as well as the delivery of AI solutions. So if you got, we've actually launched a new website in the last few weeks. So if you want to check it out, bluellama.co.uk, or you can scan that QR code there, and that will take you to the Working With Us page. So today's guest is Nathan Nichols. He is the founder of Ikigai, which is a Jersey-based AI growth marketing consultancy. I believe it launched last year. And they specifically look at how AI can help with marketing. So as it says there, in the strategy, the execution, the AI workflows, and designed to deliver iterative growth. And Nathan will be doing the majority of our presentation. And yeah, again, there's a QR code if you want to check out the website, Ikigai.je. Okay, so today's flow. So we are looking at the AI slop problem. So what do we mean when we talk about AI slop? Then I'll be handing over to Nathan, who's going to look at the prerequisites for building this effective AI content system. So what knowledge, what documentation do you need in place before you can build something with AI? Then he'll be going through the process of actually creating an AI content system, what structure you need, what different connectors and things like that, what different tools you need. And then he'll be doing a live demo in Claude, and be patient with a live demo because things always go wrong. And then we'll have Q&A at the end. So as I said before, if you've got any questions, then do put them into the comments and we can have a look at those towards the end when we've got time. So let's have a look. So the question we start with here is, what is AI slop? So it's content generated through AI that is mass produced, so it can be created, it's got, on volume rather than actual value. It's low effort, no one's adding any thinking, there's no point of view, nothing really makes it stand out. It's polished on the surface because obviously AI knows grammar and can write quite well, but underneath, if you look at it, there's actually not a whole amount of value. Also, for sort of brand interchangeability. So with marketing content, you can it's not saying anything unique about your brand. You can change who the brand is and it won't make any difference. It's like, it's nothing specific about that particular company. So you could swap it for another business. So in general, it's kind of lazy, generic, safe, and forgettable. There's nothing new being said with AI Slop. So that's the kind of stuff that we really want to avoid. And what's the cost of creating this very lazy content for your marketing through AI? Well, there's basically two sides of it. You've got the human side, and humans can identify this AI Slop now. It's like, oh God, that company's using AI. They've got all the telltale signs. So they kind of sit back and go, oh, I don't trust this brand. And then you've also got on the other side of that, you've got the systems. So like Google, like ChatGPT, like all the social media platforms, they will also check your content, and if it's AI generated, if it's obviously AI generated, then they will deprioritize it. So things like we're seeing search engines, so ClickUp recently, they went from 1.2 million monthly organic visits on their blog in January 2025 to just 29,000 in April 2026. And that's because they flooded their blog with 7,000 AI generated self-promotional posts, and Google over time just went, no, you can't do that. So I suppose the thing is, should we be using AI for content generation? And the answer most definitely is yes, but we need to do it in a really good way. So 80% of marketers are already using AI to create content. That's according to HubSpot, but only 4% of them are using it to write entire pieces. The smart, intelligent marketers are using it to draft and create helpful, as a helpful tool, but they're doing the last bit. So they're not outsourcing their marketing to AI. They're kind of using it as a tool to draft, and then they go in and make the adjustments. So why is using AI good for creating content? So it kind of helps you get started, right? You can generate ideas using it. You're not just a white paper, so it can create something to begin with, and you can go, oh, I kind of like that bit, don't like that bit. Speed, you can just blurt out all your messy thoughts. I use my voice to do that, and then it can give structure. It can identify good parts of what you're talking about. In repurposing content, super useful. So you could write a blog post, and then you can say, well, I want to create some video content from this. I want to create some LinkedIn content from this. I want to create something for our newsletter. So it's a really good way of taking some content that you've already done and being able to repurpose it quite quickly. Also, obviously helpful research, perhaps different tools to Claude, but researching, getting statistics off the web, it's really helpful for that to give your the content that you're producing a little bit more substance. And then, of course, which you've got to be careful with, but AI does allow you to produce more content because it's quicker, but you don't want to flood your platforms. So I suppose the key thing here is that people are getting amazing results using AI for marketing content, but they need to be clever in how they use it and not just hand over responsibility to AI. So we're going to play a little game now called Spot the Slop. So I have created a poll. Let me just see if I can bring that up. So here is a little bit of content that we found on the internet. Our team is small but mighty, and we believe in moving fast without breaking things. So that sentence there, let me just launch the poll. So you should now have a purple thing in the top right hand of your screen, I think, to show poll. And you can vote and tell me what is the single most overused AI tell in this system, in this sentence? Is it promotional puff? Sorry. Is it the M dash overuse? Is it binary contrast or AI vocabulary? And we have got a clear winner. Amazing. So 16 votes to the M dash. So absolutely, yeah, it's one of like, I don't know, I never used these things before. I probably don't even know the shortcut on the keyboard of how to create them. But yes, AI is always putting these, and even if you try and tell it not to, like Nathan probably has a secret ways of doing it, but it seems to bring them back anyway. So yes, there's 3 M dashes in that sentence, and not many human beings would use that. So it's kind of AI's way of injecting drama or emphasis into something. And instead of using that, you should use commas or full stops, as you probably normally would do. So thank you for that one. And then let me see if I end that poll and launch this one. So this is another bit of content. It's not just coffee. It's a moment of intentional pause. Sounds like a Marks and Spencer's advert. So out of that one, what is the single most overused AI tell on LinkedIn that's present in the example above? Is it negative parallelism? Is it inflated symbolism, false contrast, or sentence fragmentation? Much more difficult one, this, isn't it? So we've had 5 votes so far. Oof, it could go either way. It's like a very close World Cup game. So the answer is, so it's in this, also the most overused AI tell on LinkedIn. And the actual answer is negative parallelism. So it's this whole thing about it's not X, it's Y. And the thing to do is to drop that. Don't use it, just say why matters. So you would say something like, every coffee is a small moment of intentional pause. That would be a more sort of human way of doing that. So I've talked about a little bit about the AI slop problem and how we're, being lazy in AI is going to create marketing content can harm your brand. And now Nathan is going to take you through how you can create a system that helps you consistently generate higher quality, more on-brand content. Over to you, Nathan.
Thanks, Phil, and thanks everybody for joining on this very hot day, taking the time out to join. Hopefully you'll leave with a few things you can apply in your own workflows and sort of day-to-day jobs. So I'm just going to go through the slide. Can you see that? So yeah, I'll be talking through how to build a content system, and today we'll be looking at sort of, I guess, the foundations of that. As an organisation, you may look to evolve it into a more advanced sort of content-based system where a little bit more intelligence would be fed into it, which I'll cover. But yeah, today we'll be looking to give you a good overview of that, what the system looks like, how it's structured, and how you can adapt it and apply it in your businesses following the session. So to start things off, just looking at what a content system is. So, I mean, content marketing isn't a new phenomenon. It's not something AI's developed. And a lot of the AI slop that you tend to see is often, it's the result of many years of marketing copy and a lot of, claims and certain styles of writing, basically, that it's learned and it feels is often best when it's, responding to a prompt. So yeah, content systems are not new. I think in the context of an organization, they obviously mean looking at like website content might be one, so like blog posts, social posts are another. And I think content strategy generally is always been an area many brands have, I think, wrestled with and tried to understand. So I'm not going to go and try and solve that problem today, but I'm going to talk through some of the principles of how you can apply AI to hopefully build upon that, and look at applying it in your business. So what is a content system in the context of AI? It's essentially a set of files, rules, and checks that make AI work in your voice. So the idea is obviously, I think the most common way a lot of users tend to use ChatGPT or LLMs, large language models, is they would basically prompt, generate me a post for my blog post or for my business to put it on LinkedIn. And often the results are, not great. You tend to get, inconsistent results, and also you're spending a huge amount of time going back in every time and prompting manually. So the idea of a content system is to build a structure for the AI to essentially understand the context of your brand and business, and also understand how you tend to communicate things, whether it's like hooks, offers, call to actions, or it could be how you tend to position yourself also in a marketplace online. So it's quite broad. So we're covering some foundational areas, as I mentioned, but you can certainly take the toolkit that you'll get at the end of this and sort of develop it and tailor it to your own organization. But yeah, the idea is to use the system as a differentiator really for your brand, rather than relying on the sort of single prompt. So I think what there's some questions there. I don't know if you want to leave those. Yeah, we'll be sharing some of the slides after the session. So yeah, that's fine. So yeah, I think the shift is, I think if you're familiar with AI, you'll hear a lot about AI prompt engineering, which a year or two ago was around how do you get the best output from a large language model. And a lot of the time you sort of explain, here's the audience, here's the persona, here's the outcome that we want, and it's quite an in-depth prompt, and that was often what was typically used. I think a lot of users tend to still use a lot of models and tools in that same way today. So with that, you're spending a huge amount of time trying to craft it, and the idea obviously with the content system is you're not having to rely on that behavior so much moving forward, and you're shifting to what is known as context engineering in AI, where you're basically giving the model a huge amount of understanding about your business and brand, and when you're asking it questions, it can retain memories of certain things that you've asked it to do, and it can give you the most efficient response as quickly as possible, which is ideally what you'd like to see from the model itself. So yeah, the goal of the system, as I mentioned, is to improve the consistency, reduce how much time you're spending, day to day, and I guess increasing the quality of the output. And that's what we'll be focusing on today. So that's a really important aspect of any system. So Phil mentioned the sort of prerequisites for it. I've sort of referred to as the brand DNA. So a lot of organizations still don't have a lot of this stuff in place. So you don't have to have all of it in place from the get-go to use this system, but it's definitely recommended for the way AI is being used in the future of work, is to have a lot of the brand context documented and shared and really understood across departments and teams. So the aim of the content system is to drive consistency. So you want within there a brand voice pack. So what do you commonly say and what you don't say. What claims can you make? So are you the best in a particular sector? Have you won awards? Can you validate those claims? Or are there things that you shouldn't say, and even things that you want to avoid potentially as well? So a lot of that is what we're aiming for today, is consistency, and that's the sort of foundation of the first phase of it. As you become more confident with the system and you start to use it more regularly, and you see the results of the output, that's when I'd recommend you then transition a little more an intelligence-driven component or arm to the system. And with that, you're then using other data sets. So maybe then you're then pulling in like Google Analytics data, so you can see how the content's performing on the website after the content's been generated, or it could be using LinkedIn to see how the post is performed, or you're using CRM data, or you're then looking at broader, you're looking at competitor posts, comparing them to your posts, and also taking things down from websites like the site maps, which is basically like a structural blueprint that tells search engines historically, but also now can be used by as bots and scrapers. It will tell them how website is structured and where to find information. So that's really important and useful for a model as context, because then it can not only craft a response, but it can pull relevant pages, it can recommend links, and it can automate a lot of that discovery as well. So yeah, as I said, what you need before you start the system is looking at the brand guidelines, and typically brand guidelines are a nice glossy PDF document, which is definitely still needed for brands, but in the context of AI, it's stripping it down to just pure text, effectively marked down. It's sort of like, here's the our slogan, our strap line, here's our proposition statement, here's our, if you have operate in different markets, you might have a different tone in those areas and localized approach. So it's documenting all of these conditions that you rely on as a brand, and so that then becomes a file that over time you can develop. So again, within there, you might also have your key products, services, any USPs or differentiators for those. You also want to document, and also looking at other things like who are your target audience, what personas are you looking to target, and or who are your ideal customers, how are they being documented and researched. Other things in there you might have are good examples of what you've done in the past. So what content has performed historically for your brand, and they're like facts, maybe sources of information. So all of those components and elements of the system are really important, and they also shouldn't remain stagnant. They do evolve over time, and with AI, I think you also need to think about what's the process for maintaining these documents as an organization. Something I can talk through a little bit more. So we're just going to use a tour as an example in this case. So if you look at the brand voice, you'll see, so it's a bit small, you'll see how you sound. It might be calm, local, practical, named detail before emotion. Again, these obviously can be adapted to your particular brand. What you sell could be walking breaks, could be Michelin star restaurants, whatever is unique about the destination that you're promoting. Local nuances and things that AI won't necessarily understand would be things like Corbière Lighthouse. It could be recent events, tours. Because AI, I think people still assume AI knows everything and it's up to date with every bit of information. So it's important to sort of recognize a lot of the information it has is often dated. So you do need to build in process to ensure these things are maintained and are accurate, because then you'll get, again, better output from the system. So again, target audience here, maybe things like short breaks for couples, could be an attractive destination for like early nesters, those types of things. And again, just trying to basically document a lot of those things in the system. So in terms of the file system that you would see with AI, and in this content system, effectively they're just markdown files. So anyone that's been using Claude or any of the AI models really will be familiar with what these files tend to look like. Well, they'll be familiar that they exist, but often it isn't something you always go into. So I think another tip really when you're updating these is to sort of converse with the model and ask it to update it. And I'll show you how to do that in Cowork shortly, because the AI can update the files, it can create new ones, it can help you restructure the system. So I wouldn't recommend trying to do it manually generally, but obviously when you want to pinpoint really specific things, like the M dash is being used maybe and it's being missed, then it may be an issue with a certain file that's maybe stale or needs updating and refreshing. So but generally in the brand guidelines, you'd want there your tone of voice, so your positioning, and house rules, house styles. Do you use full stops after sentences, or how do you present call to action buttons, copy, all those little details that as a team you may be familiar with from memory, and you naturally do, but maybe you're not documented anywhere currently. So a big part of this is really documenting your organization's approach So the folder system, which I'll show you, then becomes the operational model really that you would use, and it helps drive the output. So within the brand folder, you'll see we have things like the guidelines. There's a voice pack, which will be a separate file. We might have a claims register in there. So here's approved, proofs that we've used historically. So if you're in a finance sort of context and financial services, professional services, you may need in here, certain regulatory guides. So you can't, make a claim that is falsified, for example. So all those little details, depending where you're operating and where you're focusing the marketing efforts, they all need to be documented. Research is a folder there. So again, I won't go through all these, but there's a research folder where you have things like any signals, as I mentioned before, from performance, or it could be, research that's been conducted or gathered from your customers, or it could be, a previous campaign that you've delivered. You can see that delivered really strong results. So again, you want some good context in there around historical performance. So again, I think a lot of brands run campaigns and, they don't really, I don't think they're versioned very well. They're not documented very well historically. So you'll run a campaign, you look at the end of the campaign results, but then what are the learnings from that? Where are they documented? How can AI help you to improve those results, basically longer term? Skills, I'll come on to the skills. We've got a number of skills in here that we're going to go through that help with the Slop, and just generally trying to apply your tone consistently. Audiences we've got in there, some prompt examples which I've included, which are just some instructions basically that will help you and you get the kit. And then you may also have within the folder structure agents, specific agents. This is a bit more of an advanced topic, but the idea would be for, perhaps for any of the previous components of the content system, you could have an agent potentially for each one of these areas. So the brand voice, how does it maintain the brand voice? What sequences or processes can you put in place that will help to keep the brand tone consistent? Can it review online sources for that? Same with offers. Can it look at the offers page of the website? Can it pull the latest content down and keep an up-to-date context, basically? So that's where agents are quite useful. It's to try and minimize that sort of manual, mundane work, and also just keep the system ticking along and current and not stale. So there's a couple of basic use cases there for those. So then going into building the system. So obviously, I think a lot of the time when you see these sort of stories of maybe where brands have gone wrong, because where I think they've maybe relied essentially too much on AI to do a lot of the heavy lifting. So it's important that the sort of human and AI workflows, processes, they work together, and that's something that you should really document and outline for any common deliverable that you use AI for. So in this instance, AI's job might be to look at the context of the system, to draft a post. It may then be to look at, giving you a few different variations of ad copy, for a campaign, wherever it may be. So it's really good doing that. But obviously the human's job is to make sure it's on brand. Needs to make sure, it's not going to, the things that the AI wouldn't necessarily understand. So is it going to offend an existing customer, or are there any risks effectively? And I think that's like a big part of the QA and review process. But equally, as the system becomes more mature, the human's job is to sort of refine it, help train it, and feedback so it can improve its memory of things not to do. And that's a key component of that, really. So in terms of content strategy or content marketing, obviously you may have a number of different outputs in terms of formats, channels and mediums. So the plan here would be to ensure that for each common type of post that you tend to use, or format, that you have a process that's really defined for that. And again, I know from experience, a lot of organizations don't tend to analyze the performance of these types of content types. as collective groups. They tend to look at the performance of a website overall or a section of the website. If you start breaking down these types of formats, and then you're using AI really, in a really focused way, you can then start to see what's working and what isn't. Whereas if you're trying to look at the overall picture, it can be a little bit clouded perhaps, and you can make the wrong assumptions. So, but yeah, generally speaking, longer form content requires more research, and in order to do that, you may adapt the system so you're putting in fresh research for every post. And I think the end goal is obviously with the system is if a competitor could replicate and copy what you've produced, then it isn't probably good enough to publish, is generally the rule. Because if it's that easy to obtain and deliver, then obviously there's something not quite right in the system, in that it's not unique to your brand, it's not unique to the research or the data or the insight that you have. So that's where you need to really think about looking at it and with that sort of lens and thought in mind. Obviously another up and coming sort of area is obviously looking at AI agents and how they're consuming your content as well. So that's something to think about. And again, I won't go into that in too much detail in this session, but that's again another area that is evolving, and AI search is becoming a really big avenue and channel to consider alongside all of the common previous types. So for a blog post example, we can cover one of those shortly in the demo. You'd have a sequence or a workflow drafted, so you'd have a template which maybe a prompt or it could be a skill that you develop for a specific blog post, and within there you've got a process outlining how it should be structured, how the introduction of it may be written, how it needs to include headings or references to other pages. So the briefing is really important. Obviously the AI, then the model can then draft based on that, and obviously with the context that you've given it, it can output a really good result or an improved result for you to then QA and review. So the review process is really important. So when you are updating things, it's important that the system can look to memorize that and have a record of it. So it doesn't, as I mentioned before, it doesn't make the same mistakes again, and you'll eventually be spending less time doing the QA because it'll hit the nail hopefully on the head a bit quicker. So once it's gone through that process, obviously you can then look to publish it. Again, you can build workflows, content management systems, and other platforms. So you've got them integrated with your workflows where you can publish directly to them. And a lot of up and coming web platforms like Webflow are moving into this space quite aggressively, in that they are building loops of briefing, creation, analysis, and sort of just like a full cycle of evaluation going through a lot of the more modern platforms. So that's generally where things are heading, I think, in terms of content for the web. And yeah, as Phil touched on before, there are big risks of leaving it all to AI and trying to scale it naturally. So there's some research that's been conducted. There's a Substack article at the bottom there from Lily Ray, who's a US sort of a search specialist. So she's done a lot of analysis on sites that had been hit as a result of a spam update in January in search results. So what it was showing is typically this curve of growth with AI-driven content, but search engines and algorithms that will detect AI will eventually catch up. So this one was actually targeting those sort of self-promotion listicles, which you may have seen online, which is like what are the top 10 social media tools, and often it's the tool it has published the content is always the number one article. So that particular update targeted that type of site really. So again, although you might achieve success short term, you do need to think and look at it with a long term hat on really. So the way the skills that we're going to give away as part of the toolkit works is, once you obviously got your brand DNA all documented, it will then sort of help you to refine your the tone and ensure there's a more consistent output from the prompt. So I'll go through that one shortly. So some of this, just a caveat, the skills I've used in there, some of you may have seen, some of them have been around before. So I've sort of effectively taken a few publicly available skills and created a sequence effectively of how they're applied and how they then lead into the sort of QA process. So it becomes a bit more of a sequence of rather than single application effectively. Some of the AI terms Phil mentioned earlier. So from the poll, we've got a couple there that you'll see. There is a Wikipedia article, which is a really good source if you haven't seen it. So Wikipedia published a really in-depth piece of content on the science of AI writing. So within there, you'll see a huge number of signals that they tend to review and recommend their editors to review. So a lot of the skills that we've got in here, the Slop skill is based around the Wikipedia guidelines. So again, that's a really good source to look at and keep, obviously monitor it, because it will evolve. So I won't go through all of those because there's quite a few in there, but you can see a number of those were sort of mentioned in the poll. We have got a sort of a cheat sheet that will be included in the toolkit at the end. So in there, you'll see a little bit more of an explanation, but I would recommend checking out the link Wikipedia post. So a more advanced aspect of the system, so say you've got the content running, you've been publishing the content for a while, and you've started to collect some results. What you then want to maybe see is obviously building that system where it can improve over time, and how it can apply the feedback and store that as memory. So this is an area of AI that is sort of quite hot at the moment, in that it's a lot of companies are looking at how they can develop self-improving systems, whether it's a content system or it could be a social system, or it could just be literally a software engineering problem. They're trying to build effectively a process whereby it can identify an issue or some feedback, it can apply the feedback, store it as memory, and then obviously it will sort of start again, and it works through this sort of loop and pattern cycle. So that is a more advanced topic, but one I would certainly look to review once you've got the foundations in place. And I think from an organisation point of view, I think it's really important to look at who is the sort of champion for this system. And obviously it will spread across different departments. So it may not just be marketing that own this content strategy. Obviously sales have really specific collateral they may need for content. So, how are they maintaining that sort of system and reviewing it? And how are legal departments, leadership, how are they inputting on it? Frequently, I think it's important with the system, not only to create the system, but obviously to look at the guardrails and the process around how you're going to maintain it, and who does what, when. And also with a lot of the models, you can now run, scheduled tasks. So you can ideally look at a way to automate this. So you're getting prompt, reminders to check certain things, or it could be just generally a reminder that you have in your internal workflows to maintain the system effectively. So yeah, as I mentioned, the sort of system is available as in the toolkit, but we also do have a GitHub repository for more advanced users and a plugin that's been created, so you can go away and use that after the session. And then again, agentic AI systems, which again you may have heard, and as I mentioned, are more about sort of reoccurring self-improving cycles. That's something probably to be covered in a future session, but there's some background in the toolkit around that as well. And And again, something just to think about if you are building any tools, or if you are looking to build a content strategy, as to how you can make sure that that's being considered. So we'll go over to Claude Cowork now, and I'll share my screen. So yeah, we're going to use Claude Cowork to go through the demo, which, if you're not familiar with it, this is sort of a desktop version of Claude, and in there it can help you manage projects. It's a little bit more advanced than the standard chat. So in there you can point at different folders, you can schedule tasks, as I mentioned, and you can sort of start to store artifacts and things like that. And if you're not familiar with it, there's a free sort of pass here that you can use that I'll put into the chat, which will give you a week on the pro plan of it. It's only 3 available, so be quick with that. So yeah, for the content system, what you'll want to do initially is, when you first load Claude Cowork, is you'll want to pick a folder, repository, effectively, from where you'll work from. So in here we've got the Jersey travel content system. You could use another folder, wherever that would be on your desktop. Effectively, once you get the toolkit, if you download it to your downloads system folder, then you'll be able to connect it through to there. So in the folder system that we've got, I'll start by with the simple prompt. So you'll see as you start chatting with the tool, on the right hand side it will show you progress, and you've also got in there a context tab. So in there it'll start showing you files and tools that it loads, and it will also prompt you obviously to start looking at what type of content are you looking for in this instance. So so for this one, we'll just create a short web post. Here's the main audience and angle. Whilst that's loading, I'll just open the folder. So it's doing some research online, which is useful, and writing the post. So So it's created a post there, and as you can see, this hasn't applied the Slop, or hasn't applied any of the skills that we have. So this is its initial sort of go at that, based on its research from the web. So it looks good, but as I mentioned before, it's probably quite generic. It doesn't have a huge amount in there. It does have some facts in there, which is good. It's like a relatively good structure. but it does have some of the telltale signs. It's got M dashes in there. So yeah, it looks like it obviously hasn't applied what we need to. So we'll then ask it to now it's basically discovered there's a content system. So it's looking at the content system that's in there, and you can see on the right hand side it's starting to load a lot more. So it's loading in the brand voice that we have, the brand words, any travel claims. It's then loading in the skills that we've got in the folder. So there's a few skills in there, including sort of one called humanizer, one called Slop. There's also a QA skill in there for the content process, especially now looking into personas. So you can see this is where the value of the context and the content system sort of comes in, because it's relying on that immediately really before it starts doing anything. So it may take a little while because it's obviously trying to digest everything. So you can see here, it's now recognised it's broken its rule, including using the word hidden gem, which is one that we have in the sort of banned words file. So if you click in there, you will see, so that's quite useful. So you can click into the side panel in Cowork. We click into sort of banned words. I can see in here we've got, some of these common, maybe generic tourism related terms. So, and those files, if you do want to edit them in this view, quite a good thing is you can click into them, or you'll see there's like a little icon appears. You can ask it to edit file, so you don't have to go into the files and change them. So now it's rewritten that post, and it's rewritten that post, and then you can see what it's removed and what it's changed. So it's removed hidden gem, prettiest beach, most photographed lighthouse. It's removed invented facts. So which is obviously very important when you're trying to use AI for content. And then it's also reference really specific points of reference. So again, that's now updated. So the old one. Share it in Google Drive, so maybe easy to see. So there we go. It's now in here. There's still some things in here that probably aren't quite right. Again, I think this is where you would then apply your brand style and review it. So for me, the first thing I can see is here you've got the structure of these headings. This feels a little bit unnatural. So you've got the shorter loop, add some history. So again, I'd give it some feedback to look into that. The other thing it doesn't do, and this is what I mentioned before, it has the context of the website. Potentially it can give you better recommendations, is it doesn't have any links in there. So if it was a piece of content, you'd have to go in and review the links. But yeah, effectively going back into the system, we can ask it to obviously review it and refine it. So I won't have time to go through all of that, but I can share with you a bit of an overview of some of the other files that we have in the system. So in the structure of the file, so we basically have the output there of the post. There are a number of things in here that you can sort of start to review. And this is, as I mentioned, when you take the toolkit away, these are the things I'd recommend reviewing in more detail. You've got a file in here with personas. So make sure you sort of review those and update those, make sure they're consistently applied. There's things in here for brand, as I mentioned. So you've got the brand guidelines file here. Again, this is quite generic, really, for the purposes of this demonstration. You would expect to see a lot more detail in one that you perhaps would create. As I mentioned, some good examples of things that you've written previously would be really good to include. So what else is in there? There's a research. We don't have a huge amount in there at the moment. As I mentioned, you could, if you're more technical, you could pull some data down, maybe from a website, or you could, copy a post or scrape a website, basically that you're looking at through the sitemap to include that. So you could give it a little bit more context. And also what we don't have in here is it doesn't have really at the moment any knowledge of what good looks like. So that's where, again, I think you'd want to spend a bit more time looking into those. So in terms of the skill itself, you can also customize those. So at the moment, we've just got in here some inputs and checks, and there's a QA gate skill in here, which again, it has included, but again, could maybe have a little bit more detail in there. So the same with this one, really. So yeah. So I think the best thing to do is to sort of try and take the toolkit and adapt it. And as I mentioned, the best way to do that is to try and converse with Claude. So, based on what we've seen, you can sort of say, well, we're missing certain aspects of the brand kit. Or in this instance, we can give some feedback maybe on the style of the post, so we don't want to include, headings that match this much. So yeah, that's what you can continue to do. So rather than go into those files that I've just mentioned, you can ask it to sort of look at the guidelines again and iterate. And basically the idea of the process that we've been through and the sort of self-improving system is over time, you could build in obviously more data coming into the system from, as I mentioned, social media feeds or the website performance. And the idea would be you'd obviously try and improve that over time. And this model, it's a content system model, but you could apply it to campaigns equally. So you could have things in there around, your campaign targeting and what worked, what didn't work, what locations have been performing well, what types of creative have been performing well, what ad formats have worked. And then the idea would be obviously it would have a lot more of that context in there really. So so here it's gone through, updated those. What it looks like now, have a quick look. And then it will say a very important point at the bottom, it's updated, want me to apply the same action heading styles of all in the brand voice pack. So when you are using Claude and any tool like that, always check these notices. There are other skills. So for more advanced workflows, there are skills that can auto apply those or structure them in certain ways. So I think that, again, that's a more advanced and use case that you'll look at over time. But for the purposes of this, it will give you an idea about how you can at least apply that to your documents. So yes, apply. And then going back again now quickly. Sorry, appreciate we're running a bit late. So yeah, now you can see the heading style has been updated. So again, cleaner, a sort of cleaner call to action in terms of how they might experience those aspects of the island. So again, I'm much happier with how that looks as part of the content system there. So yeah, overall it's improved. And then again, notes for publishing, you'll see here. It's also ask you to check some of these things. So what walking time should be considered. Obviously, with the weather as warm as it is today, maybe you wouldn't recommend going on a walk across maybe 8 miles on the coast, essentially. So all those bits of context and information are really important. So if you can give it to the system in an automated way through weather feeds or warnings or whatever it might be, then obviously that can also be really important to think about when you are creating content in this particular context. So we haven't gone into imagery and image generation. Again, it would follow a similar process in that you would have a system of what good would look like and how you would obviously apply that. But that could be another one for Phil to cover in a future session. But yeah, hopefully that's been helpful.
Thanks, Nathan. Are you going back to the slides now, or?
Yeah, sorry, 2 seconds. So yeah, as mentioned, there's a free toolkit that you can download. There's a QR code there, so that will basically give you the folder structure that we've seen earlier. It is foundational, as mentioned. It does need more work and obviously applying to your particular brand. But yeah, hopefully that's been giving you a good idea as to how you can get started if you don't have that already. I think in terms of how teams would use it, organisations. That would likely depend on what model and platform you're using and what plan you're on. But you would typically need to be on like a team plan ready on Claude, and obviously make sure that you have a process in place for how these things would be updated. But yeah, there's a few other giveaways in there as well, including the sort of plugin. But yeah, you can download that there.
I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah, over to you now, Phil. Thank you.
Nice one. Thank you very much. It was fascinating stuff, and I think we probably need to talk about a Blue Llama content system, because I think there's lots of value to be had from that. Yeah, so thank you very much. So quickly, let me just can I share my screen? Super useful stuff. Thank you very much, Nathan. Just quickly before, we might have time for 1 or 2 questions if anyone can stay over time. Our next webinar is in about a month's time. It's back. We've had a couple of guests in, but it's back to myself and Anish for this one. So this is about. It's kind of going back to we did a similar webinar. About a year ago, but I think we've learned quite a lot more since then, and it's about stop guessing, find out where AI will pay off in your business. So it's kind of learning from the opportunity assessments that we do. So we go into businesses and we find that we ask them loads of questions and we dig into their processes and stuff and find out where there's opportunity to streamline. So it's the learnings from that, the particular areas that we found are most attractive and get them the most return on investment, and how you go about yourself as a business owner or someone in operations, but determining which processes are the best ones that are right for automation. So a really practical session. The QR code there if you want to attend, but we will be sending out emails as well. Brilliant. Okay, so I don't know know if anyone's got any questions. Obviously, we are a little bit over time, so I do understand that. But yeah, if anyone's got anything, yeah, Manuel, you're on mute if you wanted to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Question for Nathan. Nathan, when you were explaining the process at the beginning, you put in the two different steps. You talk about a review and then a QA gate. Do you see that as two different things that need to be done by two different people, or is just because you wanted to make explicit the review and the decision?
So yeah, in terms of the sequence, I believe one of them was for there's a skill that specifically as an AI review process. So again, it's having a combination of the AI first critiquing almost its own work in some instances, once the workflow is better built and I've demoed. But then you can obviously, then it's more for the human review to look into that as well. So it's almost asking it to produce an output, review the output, and then you're then reviewing their output again, basically as a human, and again feeding back into the system. So where it gets a little bit more sophisticated is to see how that system stores memory and how it has versions and revisions, which is the sort of more complex part of these AI type systems. But effectively, it's building that process. So you do have those QA gates on the human side, but also on the AI side, really.
Yeah, cool. Thank you.
Perfect. Anyone else? Any questions? Okay. Anything to add, Nathan, before we?
Yeah. So I appreciate it's quite a bit of a rush through because it's quite a lot to cover, and it can be quite complex for businesses who don't maybe have some of those things in place to start. But I think the most important thing really is to just make a start on it and start with a toolkit that's there and just build on it. Really, nobody's going to start this process and have everything in place from day one. It's a real investment in evolving the system that you have and building intelligence into it over time. But it is, I think, ultimately, it is a cultural it's a cultural thing that you need to adopt within the organisation. So that can be a challenge, obviously, to sort of consider. But it is definitely something you can start with today. Start small, and I think just build on it over time. And within a few months, if you look back at where you are today, you'll soon see improvements. And then the other thing I'd add is every time there's a model release, a more intelligent model, you almost then want to reevaluate the system itself. Because the model should improve or find better ways of doing things, particularly Fable when that eventually gets launched. But yeah, but yeah, that's a couple of good tips, I guess, to sort of think about and start with.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's always start early, and it might not be perfect, but yeah, iterate on it. And as you say, the models improve, your system will improve, how you use it will improve, and yeah. Start doing it as soon as possible. Marvelous. Okay. I'm just seeing if there's interesting. There's a message from Jerry. Fascinating view under the bonnet. A little like briefing an intern. Yes, exactly. I was thinking that as you were going through it's like educating someone, a marketing junior or something like that, and providing them with the skills and the information in a folder, and they have to read it all. Yeah. No, absolutely. That's a lot. Yeah, a lot of AI feels like that at the moment. It's kind of handing over responsibility to, this is all the information you need. Go away and do your stuff. Yeah, fascinating, Nathan. Like really, really good. And obviously, if people think, oh my God, this is too much for me to handle, then your email address is there, and they can get in contact with you, and you can help guide them through. Right. So yeah, any questions? Do feel free to drop me or Nathan an email on anything that's been mentioned today. We will be sending through recordings and the link in an email to all the resources that Nathan was talking about. So yeah, thank you very much, Nathan. Brilliant.
Yeah, thanks, Phil.
Super helpful. And yeah, we'll speak. Nice one. All right, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Safe and cool rest of your day.
Yeah.
Cheers. Bye now.
Cheers. Bye-bye.